in artificial intelligence and moral agency. When it admits the first student in January, it will become the first theological school to offer a degree in AI on either the master's or doctoral level. Jason Walker reporting.
And the AI boom is sending Samsung's bottom line sharply higher. South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics checks in with a record operating profit of $62 billion for the April-June quarter. That report comes a day after crosstown rival SK Hynix reported record earnings. More on these stories, townhall.com.
No one wants to deal with a plumbing, electrical, or HVAC emergency. It's even worse when you're not sure what it'll cost, when it'll get fixed, or if someone's just selling you something. When you call Hiller, you can trust our experts to actually solve your home's problems quickly. And with true transparency pricing, you know the price you're told is the price you'll actually pay. Book online now at happyhiller.com. Happy you'll be, or the service is free.
Call the Happy Face Truck today.
On the farm, uptime isn't just nice to have, it's a must-have. That's why JLG Ag telehandlers are a multitasking workhorse. Whether moving and loading more, stacking higher, or even accessing tighter spots with compact models, these machines help poultry, cotton, and row crop producers maximize every moment on the job. Once you get behind the wheel, you'll get more done. It's that simple. See JLG Ag telehandlers for yourself. Come out to Try Green Equipment in Columbia, just off Theta Pike.
Welcome into the middle of it on this Thursday the 30th, our last show of the week. I'm so glad y'all are here. I'm so glad to be joined by, got Clayton Harris, and we got Debbie Matthews kind enough to stick around. I was told a bit before, there's a few programming things. We're going to have a shorter show today. It's going to be an hour. So because of that, since we're doing it live, there are a few things I want to make sure I get to. Debbie, I don't want to be rude or discourteous, but there are.
Show. I'm right here. Whatever you need.
Okay, there's a few things that I want to get off that have been kind of percolating, especially from yesterday. And one of the things that I guess we'll get it all together, because something like John Fetterman said something yesterday, and I guess I'm paraphrasing, and like the idea was that like he'd been blinded, at least in part, by partisanship when it came to Fauci, and people criticizing Fauci ended up being kind of largely right, because the criticism was coming from the right, even seriously considered it, if he chose to like look at it with any like, oh, maybe they got a point, it could feel like a kind of betrayal. And even looking into the accusation, it could seem as though you had already accepted the accusation and that you were now on board with everybody on the other side who you disagree with, who was making it. And that's where partisanship becomes intellectually dangerous, because now the question is no longer, is this a rational concern? The question becomes, what happens if I admit that these people that I disagree with on almost everything else might be right about this one thing? And for a lot of people, considering that feels like giving the other side credibility it hasn't earned. Like acknowledging one valid point somehow validates their entire worldview. Like saying, okay, they may be right about this, means saying, well, I mean, they were right about everything. So you shut down the question. Not because the question's irrational, and you know that. You may privately know that it's perfectly rational. You shut it down because you don't want to give that other team in the other jersey the satisfaction of being the ones who got to ask it. And like you don't want to strengthen them, you don't want to legitimize them, or you don't want to be seen standing behind them being like, I mean, it was a good point. And so once that happens, partisanship has done something much more serious than influence your conclusion. It has limited your ability to think. It's made curiosity feel like betrayal. and it has made intellectual honesty feel in yourself like disloyalty. And it's convinced you that protecting your side from embarrassment matters a lot more than finding out whether the accusation was true or not. And that is a massive intellectual mistake because a person can be wrong 99% of the time and still be right about the 100th. A political opponent can ask a legitimate question. A person you hate can notice something that you missed. Like acknowledging that does not require you to take the jersey and join their team. It only requires you to be capable of thinking. And like, I guess I'll add a caveat here because like partisanship is not itself automatically irrational. I'm not saying partisanship is wrong because political parties are supposed to be a kind of a sorting mechanism. You look at one side and you're like, I agree with them a decent amount. And the other side, you're like, I don't agree with them all that often. And when you go into a voting booth and you don't have, unlimited time to investigate the city alderman, you err on the side of that. You have a general sense of where your values are more likely to line up or align. It's not, what's not reasonable is allowing shorthand to become a substitute for thought. Like a political party is supposed to help organize beliefs. It's not supposed to own them. It's not supposed to monopolize every good idea. It's not supposed to make certain questions off limits simply because the other side asked it first. Like you can agree with one party almost all the time and still believe it's wrong about something that you find important. You can disagree with the other party all the time and still think that, yeah, I kind of would like an answer to that question. It shouldn't be that complicated, but we have made it complicated because we've started acting as though the percentage of times we usually agree with the party creates some obligation that we have to agree with it 100% of the time. As though because I agreed with you on 9 things, I owe you a 10th. I don't. You don't. None of us do. And I think it's where people lose themselves. Because it begins with values and where your head is at, because those values lead you to the party. But over time, the relationship starts to reverse. Now the party tells them which values they're supposed to have. The sorting mechanism becomes the authority. Instead of saying to yourself, what do I actually believe? They ask, what does my side need me to believe right now? Usually we justify that by, appealing to the greater good. Well, we tell ourselves, even though our side might be wrong, or I don't love this particular point, admitting it might help them a bit. It might weaken our coalition or give credibility to these people who I think are very dangerous. We silence those doubts. We ignore the rational question. We defend something we don't fully believe because we have calculated in our head that the party loyalty serves a larger purpose. And that calculation has become a trap because once you're willing to betray your own judgment for what you perceive to be the greater good, the party gets to define the greater good for you. And then you are no longer using the party as a tool. It is using you. You should not owe more loyalty to a political organization than you owe to your own conscience. You should not owe more loyalty to the percentage of times you agreed with one group in the past you owe to the facts that are sitting in front of you right now. You should never become so committed to a team that admitting the other side has a pretty valid point that makes that feel more dangerous than defending something that you know to be false. A party can help you sort. It can help you prioritize. It can help you make choices in a obviously imperfect system, but it cannot do your thinking for you. And at this moment, it does. So you're no longer aligned with a party. You are subordinate to it. And maybe that's where, I guess, I got off the rails, but this is where the whole conversation begins. Because with the idea that every person you will ever meet knows something you don't. Every person. They've lived through something that you haven't. They've seen something from an angle you would never have access to. They might understand a profession or a system, family, some fear, a consequence, or some part of the human nature that you just don't. And that doesn't mean that they're right about everything. It doesn't mean that every opinion deserves equal weight. And it sure as hell does not mean that you have to agree with them. But it does mean that you should approach every person you meet with humility and at least some respect. Because the moment you decide the other person has nothing to teach you, you have stopped listening before you even understand what they're saying. And we do that constantly now. We hear someone's politics, we hear one opinion, we see a label attached next to them, or the hair color or the suit, and we decide how intelligent we think they are, what motivates them, what person they must be, what they know, what they don't, and whether anything they say is actually even worth hearing. And that is an incredibly arrogant way to move through the world. And like, I say that as someone who catches myself doing it all the time because I'm wrong all the time. I misunderstand things. Like, I miss facts. I have biases. I'm human. I have gut reactions that feel completely true to me. And when I stop and ask myself, okay, can I actually prove that? The answer is no. Sometimes I can't. And that matters. That distinction matters because there are things that, if you put a gun to my head, I'm going to tell you what I believe happened. I'll tell you what I suspect somebody's motives were, or, I'll tell you where I think the evidence is going to lead. But I suspect is not I know. It just isn't. And one of the responsibilities that I feel that I have doing this show is not to pretend that my instinct has somehow become evidence just because I feel strongly about it. And I guess that's why the conversation about the whole Fauci thing starts to matter, is because there was so much attention on Fauci when he invoked the Fifth Amendment. And, even as it was being discussed on the show yesterday, like the circumstances where his immunity had been granted, now it raises the questions, potentially pretty serious questions that will open it up. Why invoke the Fifth? Why was the exact scope of the immunity? What was he trying to protect? What was he trying to get away from? What was he hiding? Why didn't he answer specific questions? All of those, what did he know? When did he know it? All of those things. And, those aren't, some people will say those aren't evasions. Those are attempts for him to protect himself. And they're building blocks of an actual case. So that's how you establish a case. You ask the next question and then the next one. Then you gather the documents, compare testimony, you identify the contradictions, you determine who has authority, like who gave that instruction, who signed off on that, did anybody benefit, did anybody get a little kickback, a little wet the beak, who lied and misled somebody, and whether some law or rule of public trust was actually violated. That's how accountability, I guess, is supposed to work. But almost immediately, people jumped past all of that. On one side, you got folks in one corner saying they're acting as though the fact that he invoked the Fifth could not possibly mean anything significant. Nothing to see, no legitimate concern. It's a pretty reasonable legal argument. And anybody asking questions simply has a political vendetta. And the other side, people were saying, they hardly moved from one sentence. He's guilty, he's evil. I mean, we had it on the show before. He needs to be on an electric chair or maybe lethal injection. I forgot what his exact prognosis was. But so we're talking as though the death penalty were already an obvious conclusion. And I had to sit here and think, we haven't even built a case yet. We've not ask the questions that would allow us to know what the case actually is. And that does not mean that there is no case. There is more than likely, if you're talking about gut feelings, serious misconduct, a lot of lies. There may be decisions that deserve incredible public exposure, professional consequences, and legal accountability. I'm not ruling any of that out, but my suspicion is not a conviction. Invoking the fifth is not by itself a complete account of what happened. And neither loyalty nor hatred is evidence. And that's the problem. The people defending Fauci were jumping to the end of the story. He did nothing wrong. He was a public servant. The people who despise him were also jumping to the end. He is guilty of everything that we believe. Different verdicts, the same broken process. Like one side treated criticism as illegitimate because of where it came from. The other side treated criticism as proven because of where it came from. One side says the people asking those questions, they're MAGA hacks. So the questions, they're worthless. The other side was like the people asking those questions on the other side, I mean, they're jumping to conclusions, so they must already be true. Like neither one is thinking carefully. Both are allowing team loyalty to replace the work. And that's the deeper problem. What happens when we become so partisan that we can no longer distinguish between asking a question and endorsing an answer? What happens when curiosity itself feels like betrayal? Like what happens when we refuse to examine something because we're afraid of what it might prove right? And the frustrating thing is that the real questions are sitting right in front of us. Questions that could clarify the record, questions that could expose contradictions or identify which or who made a bad decision. There's so many questions that could help us distinguish, bad policy judgment from negligence or criminal conduct. And there's varying degrees between all of them. And those questions take answers that are a lot slower than the outrage that they produce. And they are way less satisfying than a verdict you make in your own head. They don't give either side the emotional payoff that they want immediately. Because if it asks the real questions, you have to accept the possibility that the answer may not take you exactly where you want to go. And that is what people seem increasingly unwilling to do. And and there's another part that matters is that all of those things that you feel in your gut, all those conclusions that you suspect are true, even though they're based on incomplete evidence, they might be true. But we have to be honest about that. Sometimes they're true. Sometimes your instinct is picking up on contradictions before you could fully articulate and explain it. Sometimes things don't add up. Sometimes the official explanation is really incomplete. A lot of times, the person you suspect of lying, who you don't trust, is lying. Sometimes the evidence eventually leads exactly where you thought it was. That happens. But even then, you still got to build the case. Because if you jump from suspicion to certainty before the evidence can carry you there, you make the truth easier to dismiss. You give people an opening to say, see, it's irrational, conspiracy theory, no evidence, politically motivated. And at that moment, they might be right. Not necessarily right about the underlying suspicion being false, right that you have not yet proven it. And those are two different things. And this is where so much frustration from me comes, is that you may feel like deep down that you know where this whole thing is going to go, or you may eventually turn out to be right. But because you announce the conclusion before you establish the steps that led to it, somebody can knock the whole thing down. They can dismiss it, tell you you're wrong, and it won't get the credibility or the eyeballs on it to actually get to the answer. And they'll just become more frustrated because they'll just say, no, you don't understand. I know there's something here. Maybe there is. But knowing there's something worth investigating is not the same thing as a completed investigation. A suspicion is a reason to ask better questions. It is not permission to skip them. And I understand this frustration. You see pieces beginning to connect. You feel like a shape of an answer is already visible. And then somebody tells you you can't yet prove it. Every step of the whole thing. And so by its very nature, the fact that you cannot prove it, it's not worth looking into. And you can feel dismissed and patronized. And it might make you dig even harder and maybe in the wrong places. And once that happens, the conversation stops being about discovering what's true. Now it's about defending yourself, defending your intelligence or your instincts, defending the fact that you noticed something before everybody else did. And the other person is doing the exact same thing. They're no longer examining the evidence either. They're defending the position they took against you. Now you're both trapped, not necessarily because they disagree with every fact, but because they rushed to the opposite conclusions and turned the conversation into a fight over who was right or wrong. This is why we have to take these conversations piece by piece, one claim at a time, one question at a time. What do we actually know? How do we actually know it? What does it not establish? What do we still need to learn next? Like, what would move it from likelihood to something that we could, have a conclusion on and put an end to it all? But, because nobody has to defend more than the evidence can support. Everybody has to pretend certainty they don't actually possess. And nobody has to abandon this, legitimate concern simply because somebody expressed it too aggressively or too early. It applies to everybody. It applies to the person who is convinced Fauci committed serious wrongdoing, and it applies to the person who's convinced that every accusation against him is a political, just nuclear missile aimed out of Trump's ego or whatever, insert grievance. The first person might be noticing something real. The second person might be identifying a genuine gap in the evidence. Both could contribute to something useful, but only if they stop treating the first exchange as the final verdict. Because the person demanding accountability should want the strongest possible case, not the fastest accusation. The person defending someone should want those questions answered, not suppressed. If your concern isn't real, the evidence should show it. If the concern is real, the evidence ought to show that too. We don't get there by racing past questions. We get there by taking the conversation apart carefully, piece by piece, calmly, fact by fact. And I honestly think that if more of us could do that, we would end up so much less frustrated with one another and less frustrated with ourselves, because we would no longer be asking our instincts to carry more weight than they can bear. Like we should say, okay, this is what I suspect. This is why I suspect it. This is what the evidence currently supports. And this is what I still need to know. That doesn't weaken the argument. It protects it. It gives the truth. Whether the truth is ultimately is, it gives it a chance to survive a conversation. And I want to be clear about something else. Conflicts are not the enemy. Disagreements are not the enemy. People butting heads over important ideas is not the thing that should ever be eliminated. People need to have all of those conversations. I mean, every marriage that's ever ended because 10,000 fights that should have happened didn't. And you end up becoming resentful because, if you just run away from conflict or voicing your feelings, then you just become resentful because you chose not to have it. It's an argument you swallowed or a boundary you've never set, or some question you were too afraid to ask. And there's a disagreement and there's a resentment that leaks and it goes into something else. It shows up as contempt or distance or passive aggression. And I am being told to go to break. I kind of blacked out there. Sorry. Thank y'all for being in the middle of it. We will see y'all in just a few. I'm going to need y'all to tell me what I said.
This is Coach Tradaris Goff from Columbia Central High School football. You are listening to 101.7 WKOM in Columbia, Tennessee.
We at Hollins Pharmacy must be doing something right. We've been providing pharmaceutical services in the Middle Tennessee area for over 60 years. The guiding principles of our business are fast, accurate, friendly, personal service. We do not have long waiting lines, and our phone calls are answered by a staff member. We strive to get to know our customers by name, not just a date of birth or number. We are your locally owned hometown pharmacy, and we appreciate your business. We urge you to come visit us at Hollins Pharmacy, 1608 Hatcher Lane here in Columbia.
Hey, this is Derek Ransom with 10 Pin Alley, voted #1 family entertainment center in Murray County. We offer 32 bowling lanes, giant arcade, laser tag, bumper cars, and a full cafe and bar menu. We also specialize in group events, kids and adult birthday parties, company parties, sports team parties, and holiday parties. We're located at 322 East James Campbell Boulevard in Columbia. Call us today at 931-381-BOWL or visit us at 10pin.com. 10 Pin Alley, it's where the good times roll.
In today's uncertain world, you can never be too careful about your family's financial future. That's why the Parker Group, a part of Baird's Private Wealth Management, is offering a free second opinion on your financial plans. Let us review your current plan, and we will identify any gaps and offer suggestions to improve it. Please call the Parker Group at 931-548-3737. That's 931-548-3737. Robert W. Baird & Company Incorporated does not offer tax or legal advice.
This is Mark Curry at the Trailer Store. We are a local, family-owned business. Every day, I work with my wife, Susie, my mother, Becky, and my son, Justin. We offer a full line of lawnmower trailers, utility trailers, stock trailers, and a full line of trailer parts. We also offer service. Come see us at 1021 New Lewisburg Highway. Call us at 931-381-2795. That's 931-381-2795.
Farmer Johnny here, Taylor Family Farm. I want to give y'all a little look-see. We raise 100% non-GMO, grass-fed beef, pasture chicken, and pork on our family farm. Everything that we grow is raised with love and care to ensure the highest quality and nutrition for our family and customers. You can shop online at TaylorFamilyFarmTN.com or visit our farm store in person at Etheridge, Tennessee at 301 Dave Reisner Road. That's TaylorFamilyFarmTN.com for more information.
Hi, I'm Kelly Dobson, owner of Caring Hearts Home Healthcare here in Columbia. For over 20 years, we've proudly served our community, locally owned and operated, providing trusted care you can count on. We support seniors, individuals with disabilities, and even short-term care after surgery. From personal care to homemaking and companionship, our team is here to help you or your loved one live safely and comfortably at home. Call Caring Hearts today at 931-381-5470 or stop by in person, 1121 Trotwood Avenue here in Columbia.
Hello, I'm Rick Whitley.
And I'm Daniel Pollard from Jones & Lang Sporting Goods. We would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for the many years of support. Since 1966, Jones & Lang has been locally owned and operated and supplying teams from T-ball to college. Stop by and see what we can do for you. We offer a wide variety of services from silk screening and embroidery to our custom trophy and awards department.
We're open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and Saturday, 9 to noon. Remember, Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Hello, my name is Zach Maddox. I'm a proud third-generation owner-operator of Columbia Paint and Wall Cover, founded by my grandfather, Ralph Maddox, in 1946. We offer a variety of paint and wall covering products, but our passion is customer service. We can offer many personalized services and can come out to your house or business if needed. Come visit us at our Columbia location or our new Spring Hill location behind Church of the City, or visit us online at paintcolumbia.com.
This is Coach Devin Simler from Columbia Central Baseball. You are listening to 101.7 WKOM in Columbia, Tennessee.
I'm Gabe Howard, and my time in the United States Marine Corps shaped who I am. The Marine Corps taught me discipline, responsibility, and that leadership means putting mission and people before self. Those lessons have guided me as a husband, father, small business owner, and county commissioner. As Murray County Mayor, I'll bring that same servant leadership, accountability, and determination to fight for taxpayers and our future. I'd be honored to earn your vote. Paid for by Gabe Howard for Murray County Mayor, Stephen Brown, Treasurer.
Hi, Murray County Mayor Sheila Butt. Who am I? I am pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-law enforcement, and pro-education. I'm committed to keeping Murray County the freest county in the state. We are currently working on the comprehensive land use plan, making sure that we all have a voice in what Murray County looks like for the next generation, while protecting the things that matter most to us: faith, family, and freedom.
This ad is paid for by the committee to elect Sheila Butt.
July is Beef Month in Tennessee, a time to celebrate one of our state's largest and most important industries. The Maury County Farm Bureau proudly salutes our local beef farmers for their hard work and dedication to producing a wholesome, nutritious, and sustainable food choice. Tennessee beef is fueling families and our economy. So fire up the grill, toss on a juicy burger or a sizzling steak, and join us in celebrating July Beef Month in Tennessee. For great tasting beef recipes, visit beefitswhatsfordinner.com.
Columbia deserves leadership that's prepared for tomorrow without forgetting what makes our city special today. A mayor who listens before leading, who brings people together, who makes thoughtful decisions that keep Columbia moving forward. I'm committed to making Columbia even better. I'm Stuart Parker, and I respectfully ask for your vote for Mayor of Columbia on November 3rd. Paid for by the committee to elect Stuart Parker, Charlotte Battles Treasurer.
Learning is tough enough, but big tech engineered distractions that make it even harder for kids to focus.
Conservative Marsha Blackburn. When no one else would, she took on big tech to protect our kids from dangerous content. Now she's fighting to take back our classrooms.
My plan? Bell to bell, no cell.
As our next governor, Marsha Blackburn will eliminate cell phones in the classroom to help move Tennessee students from distractions to success. She'll take away the bureaucratic barriers holding back our schools and give teachers and students the help they need to make Tennessee education the envy of the country. Conservative Marsha Blackburn. Trump trusted. Tennessee first.
No more posting, no scrolling. Here in Tennessee schools, we're going to learn.
Standing up for our kids, fighting for Tennessee. Marsha Blackburn for governor. Paid for and authorized by Marsha for Governor, Treasurer Glenn Jacobs.
I'm Charlie Hatcher, and I'm running for Congress in Tennessee's 5th District. My faith, my family, and a lifetime of serving others has guided every step of my life. As a veterinarian, 10th-generation farmer, and former Tennessee Agriculture Commissioner, I know what hard work means. In Congress, I will defend our conservative values, protect our families, and stand up for American agriculture. My philosophy is simple: work hard, get the job done, and serve others. I'm Charlie Hatcher, and I'd be honored to earn your vote.
Experience snoring, trouble sleeping, daytime exhaustion? All of these could be signs of a sleep disorder. Dr. Samini Uman is bringing her sleep practice to Middle Tennessee, offering both clinic and online appointments with proven results. Telehealth appointments with no waiting rooms, home and in-lab sleep studies with local sleep lab partnerships, including Williamson Med Center. Visit oursleepdoc.com or call 615-302-8039. Your path to better sleep starts here.
Hey, this is Drake and my dog Carl from the Front Porch Sports Radio Hour. Summer heat in southern Middle Tennessee is no joke, and your animals feel it too. With record-setting temperatures and high humidity, it's critical to keep your pets and livestock cool, shaded, and hydrated. Make sure they have constant access to clean water, shelter from the sun, and never leave them in a parked car, not even for a minute. Take care of your animals like family, because they're counting on you.
Welcome back into the middle of it. Jeb Hart here with y'all on this Thursday, the 30th. Happy to be here. Happy to have Clayton Harris here, and happy that Debbie Matthews stuck around and is here and stuck around through my. I'm not even completely certain what I said, but she stuck around throughout all of it, so I appreciate your patience. Morning to you, Debbie.
Good morning. Good morning. I meant what you were saying is so well put, but I do want to take just a little issue with it.
Issue away.
Just from me, okay? Because I'm an educated person that lives with a Mensa level person that researches all of everything. And when this stuff went down in 2019 into 2020, Jason had just come out of cancer treatment. He couldn't talk. He definitely couldn't sing, which was his living. So immersed in all of this stuff and the research that we were coming across in a very educated, solemn way, trying to get a hold of what was happening, because I was having to venture out every day as a real estate agent. I was having to go into people's homes. It was not comfortable, you know, and I expected to get sick. But what people considered conspiracy theories, or where we had questions, we were sort of doxed out into the hinterlands with other professional doctors that were giving their research, their questions, and all of those things years before most people even started to say, hey, is this a conspiracy? So there's a lot of educated people out there that was looking at this stuff, and we weren't making political statements. We were saying, hey, this is a little bit too rushed. This doesn't make sense. This is completely opposite from what he said under the SARS investigation. You know, so
I'm confused as to how that is in any way like a something that I.
Well, you said it was as, oh, you just took the party line, or they took the party line. Where we found ourselves.
Okay, that's where we missed.
Where we're not.
I'm not.
Yep, I'm not in a party. We were not in a party, and we found ourselves with the Maha people. You know, and it's like the people from California that were moving here that would not even give their children gluten, right? They were really worried about these shots.
I guess I want to clarify here is that the party line version was the version of the pushback that you received. And in this case, it's that this runs both ways. It runs across everything. It's
right.
Some questions are not even considered legitimate,
right.
even though your own judgment recognizes that. I mean, I probably ought to ask that.
Well, we ran into that because we were immediately shut down to say, if you spoke out against the shot, if you spoke out and didn't get the shot, you were called that I was going to murder somebody because I didn't have the shot, or I was putting the whole population at risk because I wasn't getting the shot. It was this extreme vitriol that was coming from the left. So you couldn't even stand up straight for 5 seconds and say, hey, I have a question.
I think that's a perfect example of exactly what I'm talking about when we're talking about building like the case against Anthony Fauci and the things that went wrong and the accountability that needs to happen.
Yeah.
The reason that it needs to be structured correct so it's not cut down is the same reason that the people who just jumped in front and said, you want to murder people. And you're like, no, I mean, I don't need this vaccine and I've already had it. And natural immunity is the thing. I mean, I literally just got COVID 2 weeks ago.
Right.
I can't get this shot unless I fly.
Right. Well, this is where it comes in for me is the case has already been built by patriots, and I'm calling them patriots, that has stood up for the last 7 years almost against this with Fauci. We've already done the research. We've already seen what he's done. We've seen the lies. We've seen the manipulation. We've seen the list of other experts that he paid off just to make sure that it looked like it was from animal to human jump. All of this stuff has been percolating on half of the nation. And now all of a sudden the other half of the nation is slowly coming to the realization, now we have to build a case against Fauci. No, we don't. We've already built it over the last 7 years.
But again, I think that this is part of the reason that I kind of blacked out. Like I watched Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks and Anna Kasparian last night, and basically they were like, I feel like an idiot. I feel like all of these things that like we should all take moments like this.
Cenk said
that. I think that the problem that I hope we don't do, if you were on the right, is take a victory lap and point fingers in people's faces. No. What I think the people on the left need to do is not feel ashamed. Recognize it, that it's okay to be wrong and to learn.
What was the Young Turk? I mean, they were like, they felt deceived. I mean, what was?
They felt deceived. He was just like, he said something that I said the day before, which, he said it afterwards. So, I mean, I'm not saying he plagiarized, but it was a nice turn of phrase. He was like, he said, I was under the impression, I'm paraphrasing, that he was speaking because of his level of authority. He was speaking for all scientists, which gave the authority of scientific consensus when he spoke. When in reality, he was speaking for himself with like a bit of background help and a bit like it wasn't what it was presented as far as certainty of authority.
He didn't represent the scientific community.
Yes. And that was the thing that I had said, the day before, was that like there's a difference between trusting the science and trusting the scientist. Those are different things. And they require you to ask different questions.
Well, I think it comes back to Will Kane did this so well on a radio show one day. He said, there's knowledgeable people and then there's experts, and the experts tend to be paid experts that are paid for a certain slant on everything, on who's funding them, right? And these experts were running around getting moolah amount of money. And anyway, I just...
you got to define expert.
Well, can
properly.
I ask you, just for my own self education, if you don't mind, Jeb, were you deplatformed at all during this time?
No.
Okay, so
I had some internal family. I had some internal family strife about it.
Sure, but you weren't deplatformed. Your speech ability to speak and ask questions was not taken away from you during this time.
I didn't do it. I mean, basically, until I had this show, I never did anything.
See, that's the thing is we were deplatformed. Right now, my Facebook is still throttled. I have 4,000 people, and right now I can't hardly break 100.
What is throttled?
I mean, throttled means if you're a conservative, they do that to conservative voices. If you shared any information out there, they throttled you. They throttled our GOP website. They throttled our conservative Republicans. They've throttled me. So we're still throttled on Meta, which is still
like a
doing
bad
this.
definition, because throttling seems like it would go faster or be more.
No, a throttle means it's like they put a governor on your car to where you can't go above a certain speed. So I was deplatformed. I had a business manager in Nashville that handled all of our business. Pretty big name. The lady that was my direct contact took me to lunch one day, and she sat across from me and she goes, "You made a donation to the Trump campaign." And I said, "Yes, I did." And the next day I was let go from that business manager. So I had to go search a conservative business manager in Nashville, which has gotten harder and harder to even talk about your political status in Nashville, because if you are not of that ilk now, you don't get cuts, you don't get access. And so I had to find a conservative business manager, and thank God I found Blue Sky at the time with Harlan Hallett. But I was deep. I mean, it was a mess. And I'm not the only one.
Did they sue other Blue Sky? Because I feel like they might have conflicting ideologies based on the way you told the story.
Blue Sky has been sold to a California company, Armanino, which, of course, when they came in, I was like, okay, I'm one of the conservative people here. And sure enough, I had to go find another business manager. I mean, it saturates everything in the Nashville market right now, everything. So when you are a part of this group that from the beginning said, I have questions, all of this. And again, I come back to Jason's mother. I mean, in North Carolina, she had like this stroke in September of 23. We get there, we send her by ambulance to the hospital. When we get there, they put us in a room. Again, the fall of 23. Then they looked and said, "Hey, Jason, Debbie, we need to talk to you in the hallway." We go out of the room, and they said, "Oh, your mother has tested positive for COVID. We need you to put these pink masks on." We were like, okay. Then they said, "We need you to leave the hospital grounds." So here's a 75-year-old woman that we thought had a stroke. Turns out it was kidney failure. But they were removing us from the hospital grounds fall of 23, okay? This thing in Tennessee we do not know how the spin and propaganda on these other liberal states was so far embedded until you compare them to here in Tennessee. And somebody needs to do a psychological study on all of this, because
I said, I suggested the book for anybody who wants to read it, A Diary of a Psychosis.
Okay.
And it's about the public and how public health failed America and betrayed themselves. I believe is the title. I think I'll paraphrase the last part. But
Jeb, I tell you, there's a documentary that Debbie had folks on from the documentary on her show last year. You really need to check it out. It's called
Died Suddenly.
Died Suddenly.
Yeah.
It is.
And that's the Undertaker that I had on. And he was so level.
Does he go by Undertaker or Mortician?
He's a mortician. His name is John Connolly.
He's out of England.
I don't know. Is Undertaker a slur in that community?
No. But what was so interesting to him, he was on the Died Suddenly thing, but he originally, was watching what was taking place as people were coming in. And at first he had nobody that was dying of COVID. And he had the government checking every week, how many COVID deaths have you had?
We have talked about this last time we were here, and I agree. I think this comes to back to the central point of what I was kind of blacking out when I was talking about, because I think the part of the reason that it bothers, like this sort of thing, and I apologize, it's not a personal thing at all. It's just like my brain does not think in a straight line. I got dyslexia, dysgraphia, and ADHD, and for my entire life, they've created real difficulties. Like I can barely write. I couldn't read until I was in high school. Organizing my thoughts is kind of a pain, and taking the thing I can see in my head and turning it into something that another person can follow is pretty frustrating. So I'm sorry if I'm tightening up, but my brain almost never allows me one question to stay one question. And one question creates 90 more. And the way my brain actively functions is that, how some people don't have an internal monologue, which is bizarre to most people. Some people hear their own voice. Some people have different degrees of it. I have a movie with a soundtrack, a narrator, DVD commentary, and occasionally a guy from South Memphis being like, "Oh!" in the movie theater of that whole thing. But each time a question gets brought up, it gets cross-referenced to get 90 different things. And because each new fact to me changes the meaning of the story. And of course that doesn't mean I'm always right. I make things, and this is kind of a problem, I make things more complicated than oftentimes they should be. And sometimes I follow some connection that doesn't matter, or sometimes noise can overwhelm the point. And I get that that's how I function. Okay. But it also means that I have a really hard time looking at one event and pretending that it existed by itself.
Okay, so
it never does.
What Clayton asked you, though, is had you ever seen the documentary Died Suddenly?
I have seen a few clips of it, but I would not be able to say I don't have enough facts about it to give a weighed-in opinion. I've seen clips. I have questions, but I don't know enough about it to have an opinion.
If you do get a chance, and I would be honored if you would pull up the Debbie Matthews Show and pull up this guy's interview with me from London off of the show. He was so gracious to do that. It's just his point of view from his place of real time of what he was dealing with COVID, especially in the UK, because it was so shut down. And then just see, because I've tried to bring in experts over COVID and things on my show and to talk about it. But I think it's important that we look at everything.
I agree, because, think of it like, the reason I guess that's anecdotal, I think it's interesting. I will look into it as a side. I absolutely will. But I guess I'm trying to relate myself to people, because I know I can sometimes be verbose and annoying. But think of it like a pebble hitting the water. Most political conversations, we talk about the splash. Who threw it? Why did they throw it? Was the splash good or bad? Did it help my side? Who caused it? Which side threw it? But the splash is not the whole story. that water keeps rippling. Where do they go? What did they hit? What happens when they reach the shoreline? What happens when they collide with another current? What happens when a rule created for this one pebble gets used by everybody else who potentially might throw another rock someday? Those aren't distractions from the conversation. That is the conversation. And I guess living inside my head is exhausting. And I can't let something be because I just, every single time something comes up, it generates 19,000 different second and 19,000th order effects that I cannot allow something to be simple, which is a problem. But it also does allow me to see things very differently because I cannot take I can look at each individual instance like the documentary you're discussing and recognize the weight that it gives and see it as part of the picture.
Okay.
And
let me ask you a question. Were you familiar with all the videos that were coming out with worldwide athletes dropping on the fields in record numbers that had never happened in history before?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that to me is a part of the story that left
But wait,
has never
this
seen.
is where I have to stop, is because that's part of the story. But the answer to what happened to them is not, there's not enough evidence to justify exactly what happened. It happened.
Well,
The lady
I
that
disagree. So I think
well, I mean, if there is enough evidence to
Yes.
justify that, I would love to see it. I don't have that. I've not seen. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've looked into
I
it.
mean, it's like 1,950 deaths on fields after the COVID vaccines because
How many? Okay, how many before?
There were not
How many
any
before?
I mean, you had people that maybe died of dehydration.
How many before during
every
that same
once in a
time
while.
period? Were they the same type of?
No,
Like, there's
they were
so many
not.
questions to ask, and until I have enough information to justify the strength of a position, I cannot have it. I can continue to ask the questions, and I think it's incredibly interesting to do so. But I cannot make that jump. That's the entire part of the first thing of this whole show. I believe I was talking about was that is a very good question, Debbie. Why did so many athletes die on? I mean, you can ask questions about, okay, is it maybe because there's more video and all of this, and we have records of it, et cetera, or was it due to the vaccine? When you jump to already knowing the conclusion, you limit your ability to think about the whole thing holistically.
Yeah.
There could be other things you could learn more from it.
I'm
not dismissing it.
Well,
I'm just
coming
saying
from
that
6 years of watching and studying, etc. I'm not coming into it today going, oh, blah, 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 Fauci lied, whatever. I'm talking about there's 50% of this country who has been deeply affected and dismantled, and their freedom of speech, freedom of other things, freedom of movement were taken away. And those people have been digging and watching, okay? And everybody had the questions because myocarditis was a listed problem, especially in young men. And that was something we all watched. So every time a news anchor would drop after she, you have the video of the one.
I understand, but again, this is my point, is that I agree that is something that needs validation. And I think that all of this, and so we got 2 minutes left, so I guess I want to land this plane, because the whole thing what we got with Fauci is the big story of the news of the day, is that, I think that it is advisable from an attorney standpoint for him to plead the fifth. There are incredibly legally dubious, both based on the fact that he had an opening statement that he didn't answer questions to, the fact that he didn't answer questions that could never have implicated him, like what color is your tie? We know how this is going to go. Also, the whole immunity thing and implication in that, especially when they tied it specifically to that time, so he couldn't have incriminated himself. But if you're a lawyer, it's a safe bet. Give it a go. Terrible PR. But his whole thing, that the people who are on his side say he spent 50 years giving his life to public health. By not saying anything, leaving these questions out there, you destroy trust in public health.
Didn't all the vaccine companies get immunity on the?
That preceded this by a lot. That's been the case for a while.
that was the deal though, wasn't that was part?
It's been the case for a while, but yes, and in this case even a little bit more so. But it wasn't something that they came up with. But you by doing what was considerably legally advisable, what he did was just add more fuel to the fire of distrust that people already have. And those questions that he left unanswered, that he pled the fifth to, don't go away because he pled the fifth to them. They are still out there. They will still exist. And it'll be a reckoning that other people and doctors and hospitals are going to have to answer for. And I hope it doesn't come to that. And until I see y'all on Monday, have a great weekend and be careful, kind,
Breaking
and
news
good.
this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. A key inflation barometer, one that is closely monitored by the Fed, has prices 3.7% higher last month compared to a year ago. Meanwhile, the American economy grew at 1.5% April to June. Wall Street
Good afternoon and welcome into the Front Porch Sports Radio Hour Middle School Football Special Edition.